What Horner, Marko, and the entire Red Bull camp have just brought to light isn't just a frustrated reaction after a tough race weekend. It's a bombshell, a piece of never-before-seen evidence that could completely change the story of the Spanish Grand Prix. Because now, it's no longer just about Max Verstappen's clash with George Russell or a questionable tyre strategy. It's about something much bigger, something that cuts to the core of what many are now calling one of the most controversial stewarding decisions of the season. Red Bull has just revealed footage, untelevised during the race, aired exclusively on their own channel, Service TV, that they claim shows with absolute clarity Charles Leclerc ramming into Verstappen at over 300 kilometers per hour. The FIA did nothing. This isn't speculation. This isn't a he said, she said. This is visual proof, according to Red Bull. Evidence that wasn't made public during the race, but that now has Verstappen and his team absolutely furious. Because while Max was penalised later in the race and now sits just 1 point away from a race ban, Leclerc, who initiated what Red Bull believe was the first blow, walked away completely untouched. No reprimand, no warning, not even a review of the new footage. And that's what's turning this story from post-race frustration into something much more serious. Because if the FIA really did have access to footage that could show Leclerc was at fault, and ignored it, then we're not just talking about a missed call. We're talking about a credibility crisis. A decision that could impact not only Verstappen's championship hopes, but the integrity of the sport itself. So, if you thought the drama in Barcelona was over, think again. Because what's just come to light could flip the narrative completely. And what Horner, Marko, and Verstappen are now demanding from the FIA is nothing short of a reassessment of the rules, the decisions, and the accountability of those in charge. This is no longer just a race result. It's the beginning of a potential storm that could shake the very structure of how Formula One is governed. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and stay right here until the very end. Because the footage Red Bull just exposed doesn't just tell a different story. It might just expose a system that's been failing in plain sight. Let's rewind to that critical moment in Barcelona, a moment that's now taking on an entirely new meaning. On the surface, it seemed like a standard post-safety car shuffle, Verstappen on hard tyres, Leclerc on softs, and a tense battle down the main straight. But beneath that surface lies a turning point, a spark that set off a chain reaction of frustration, controversy, and what Red Bull now believe is an outright failure in how the FIA applies its own rulebook. Max Verstappen, boxed in by circumstance, had no choice but to take the hard compound, the only fresh set left in his allocation, just as the field bunched up behind the safety car. It was the worst-case scenario. Cold tyres, poor grip, a grid of rivals with far superior rubber. As the race resumed, Max did what Max does. He fought. But the fight didn't go his way. Coming out of the final corner, struggling to tame the rear of the car, Verstappen opened the door. Charles Leclerc, on softs, pounced, surging forward down the main straight. And that's when it happened. Live broadcast angles showed a slight touch, nothing more than a minor scuffle in the heat of the moment. But the footage that emerged afterwards, captured and aired by Service TV, told an entirely different story. In this previously unseen camera angle, the contact between Leclerc and Verstappen is violent, sudden, forceful. Leclerc's front left wheel veers in and clips Verstappen's Red Bull at a speed well over 300 kilometers per hour. It's not a nudge, it's not a squeeze, it's a hit, and it sends a shockwave through the car. Helmut Marko described it in no uncertain terms. Max was rammed by Leclerc at 300 kilometers per hour, he said. Not brushed, rammed. And here's the most alarming part. The stewards had already ruled on the incident before this footage was aired. They reviewed what they had and determined that neither driver was wholly or predominantly to blame. In fact, they made their ruling on the basis that both drivers seemed to accept it as a racing incident. Case closed. No further action, but that ruling was based on incomplete information. At least, that's what Red Bull are now claiming, because according to them, this new footage paints a far more serious picture, one that not only shows clear fault, but one that could have and should have resulted in a penalty, yet it didn't. And from Max's perspective, that's not just an oversight, it's a betrayal. Verstappen didn't just lose a position in that exchange, he lost momentum, he lost focus, and in the laps that followed, the frustration boiled over. When George Russell approached, the sequence of decisions, including Red Bull's controversial order to let Russell through, led to another incident, a collision born out of anger, out of disbelief at what had happened moments earlier, and that's the key. These weren't two isolated clashes. For Verstappen, they're part of the same narrative, the same injustice, the same feeling that he's being held to a standard no one else is being judged by. While Leclerc walked away penalty-free, Verstappen was hit with a 10-second time drop and 3 penalty points on his super license. That alone would be frustrating. But the fact that this all followed a collision that Red Bull believes was initiated by Leclerc, and that new video evidence now seems to support, makes it feel, in Max's mind, like a double punishment. One for reacting, and none for being provoked. And Leclerc's response? Calm, dismissive. He acknowledged the contact, yes, but waved it off as part of racing. I probably would have been very vocal if it was the other way around, he admitted. A curious comment that reveals just how subjective the perception of blame can be in these moments. He said Verstappen tried to squeeze him, that the contact was light, that nothing really happened. But that's not how it looked on the new footage, and that's certainly not how it felt inside the Red Bull garage. The silence from the FIA is deafening. No re-evaluation, no clarification. No indication that they're even willing to consider the footage that has now been broadcast publicly. That silence is dangerous, because if a team can provide new, clearer evidence that contradicts the steward's original ruling, and it's ignored, then what confidence can anyone have in the system? It's not just about that one overtake, it's about the precedent it sets. If aggressive moves like Leclerc's are excused, but frustrated reactions like Verstappen's are penalised to the maximum, then where's the consistency? Where's the line between hard racing and foul play? And more importantly, who gets to draw that line? Verstappen now sits at 11 points on his super licence. One more, and he'll face an automatic race ban. With 2 high-pressure weekends coming up in Canada and Austria, 2 tracks known for chaos, for tight corners, for split-second decisions, Red Bull is staring down the barrel of a nightmare scenario. Lose Verstappen for a race, and they don't just lose a driver. They lose their title defence, their constructors' fight, their aura of control. So this footage, aired post-race by their own broadcaster, is more than just a technicality. It's a statement, a challenge, a cry for consistency from a team that feels targeted, from a driver who feels he's been left exposed, punished, and unsupported by a system that once applauded his fire, but now seems desperate to tame it. The conversations aren't stopping. Inside Red Bull, in the FIA offices, in media briefings, in fan communities around the world, everyone's watching. Everyone's waiting to see if the FIA will acknowledge what's now in the public domain. And if they don't, then this isn't just about Barcelona anymore. It's about how the championship is being policed, and whether the sport's most dominant driver is being unfairly pushed toward the edge. One wheel-to-wheel clash, one frame of footage, one decision not made, and now, a storm that could change the direction of the entire 2025 season. So let us know what you think. Is Verstappen right to be furious? Does the service TV footage prove Leclerc should have been penalised? Or is this just more fuel on an already burning fire? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you think the FIA needs to be more transparent with their rulings. And subscribe for more deep dives into the controversies shaping this F1 season. Because if what happened in Barcelona was a flashpoint, What's coming in Canada might just ignite the entire championship.